monitoring and evaluation process from Azerbaijan perspective. And using this opportunity, I would like to extend my gratitude to co-facilitators as well as to the World Bank and hosting country, Turkish government. So after sharp drop in oil price in 2015, Azerbaijan decided to switch its economic model to productivity-based model, and that's why launched strategic roadmaps in 11 sectors with competitive advantage plus national economic perspective. At that time, we understood that monitoring and evaluation is a powerful tool for strategic management, and that's why our Center for Analysis of Economic Reforms and Communication was delegated to provide monitoring and evaluation of strategic roadmaps. And now we are running monitoring and evaluation about 30 state programs, strategies as well. So first of all, we invited World Bank, UNDP and other international development partners to support us to develop monitoring and evaluation framework and methodology. And there are three main features of monitoring and evaluation in Azerbaijan. First of all, in the first stage, we started from activity-based monitoring and evaluation. Now we are switching gradually to result-based monitoring and evaluation. And result-based monitoring and evaluation based on logic model, a results chain, smart and cross-cutting performance indicators, and performance framework as well. On the other hand, we are developing special manuals and guidelines for result-based monitoring in Azerbaijan. The second feature is based on functionality of linkage between fiscal policy of Azerbaijan on one hand, on the other hand, monitoring and evaluation. Because within strategic roadmaps, Azerbaijan implemented midterm expenditure framework, result-based budgeting, fiscal guidelines, and mid and long-term public debt strategy. So it is very important today interlink monitoring and evaluation results to midterm expenditure framework and result-based budgeting in order to increase efficiency in Azerbaijan. And the last point, digitalization of monitoring and evaluation system in Azerbaijan. Getting support from BP, we launched new software to run monitoring and evaluation in digital platform, which leads us to big data, which is very important for governance in Azerbaijan. And as you know, today we call GDP, gross domestic product, gross data product. And from that point of view, in future, we have planned to implement machine learning and artificial intelligence on big data. It is very important for Azerbaijan, and our center, who is in charge for shaping reforms agenda of Azerbaijan, needs such kind of big data, because information coming from monitoring and evaluation is a breeding ground for shaping economic reforms agenda of Azerbaijan. For example, Mr. President tasked government to create new economic strategy between 2021 and 2025 based on information coming from monitoring and evaluation results. So it is very important for Azerbaijan to digitalize monitoring and evaluation in order to introduce big data and data analytics in the future. Let me switch to advocacy and communication of monitoring and evaluation in Azerbaijan, and as well as the benefits coming from advocacy and communication. First of all, there are a lot of stakeholders, and every stakeholder needs own message, own narrative, and every stakeholder needs own channel to be delivered. And these narratives and appropriate channel and stakeholders, this is a system, and that's why through this system, we try to overcome, first of all, misconceptions and knowledge gap between government bodies and the rest of the world, including population, business sector, world community, so on. The second benefit coming from advocacy and communication is to influence state programs and strategies so that they include monitoring and evaluation, adequate provision at the first stage. Because we need, first of all, to put in, monitoring and evaluation provision in all state programs and strategies in order to interlink to them to fiscal policy. As I mentioned, fiscal guidelines and midterm expenditure framework in order to introduce program budgeting in Azerbaijan. The second benefit to increase civic engagement and citizen participation in state programs compilation and afterwards, of course, implementation and monitoring process. Because we understood within this framework that the main power for completion and implementation of reforms agenda is ownership sense. If your population feels that he or she is core author of this reforms agenda and is participating in implementation, it means that you are very close to success. And that's why civic engagement and citizen participation in reforms agenda, as well as in discussion process of monitoring and evaluation results, is very important. And through public discussion, through, let's say, social networks, through other channels, we try to publicize all these results, monitoring and evaluation results. And Azerbaijan is only country in post-Soviet areas that introduced not only monitoring or evaluation results stemming from state programs, but government bodies' performance as well. And of course, it is sometimes very difficult for our Center for Analysis of Economic Reforms and Communication to publicize. But anyway, we publicize all these results, and such kind of publication is additional impetus for discussions. The next benefit from M&D communication, of course, to support donor coordination in Azerbaijan, because after publication of monitoring and evaluation results, firstly, we try to collect all international development partners in Azerbaijan and together with them to discuss the results. This is very important for them as well, because this is additional, tool for them to provide, to bypass, resources misallocation, coordinate their activities, and to understand demand coming from Azerbaijani side, Azerbaijan government side. And of course, in this donor coordination mechanism, we try to meet supply from donor coordination, donor community, and demand from Azerbaijani government. Very important benefit from communication advocacy of monitoring and evaluation is to support public-private dialogue. We introduced new portal azranking.az, where we provide digital public-private dialogue. This is very important. Azerbaijan is one of the countries that digitalized public-private dialogue as well. And all these feedbacks from private sector is very important for government to shape, first of all, economic reforms agenda and to involve public sector as core author of economic reforms in Azerbaijan. On the other hand, to increase the, practical meanings of all these reforms in Azerbaijan. And that's why this is very important line for us. And we tried to introduce our Center for Analysis of Economic Reforms and Communication. On one hand, institute who is in charge for monitoring and evaluation. On the other hand, to organization who is in charge for shaping reforms agenda in Azerbaijan. So communication of MND results supports us to increase accountability and transparency. And this is very important from private sector perspective, because in this case private sector knows everything about government policies, about main message for short term, mid term and long term, and based on this message private sector increase its increase its activity in this very field, and this is additional tool for private sector to forecast their activity and increase predictability of private sector. And that's why such kind of public-private dialogue is very important as we provide advocacy and communication of monitoring and evaluation results. So this is just very succinct introduction from my side, and I tried to take into consideration time exposure, 10 minutes, and now it will be my pleasure to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think you make my life very easy, so thanks for that. And incidentally, it's very interesting because I was thinking through your two presentations. You already hit the three basic principles of good administration, which is transparency, accountability, and predictability. So you said the three words, but also coming from Drago's presentation, we have the concept here. So I will pass the floor to Sandra to start with, so to give us a bit of a feedback on the presentation, and then as before we pass the floor to the room.
Yeah, thanks a lot for your presentation. So you didn't use your slides, so luckily for you, I studied your slides in the airplane. Because now you only mentioned two things that I really liked, and when I read the slide, I observed three. And the three things I really like about what you presented is that you, in the slides, it was we asked the question, the so what question. So that's something that triggered me when I was reading the slides. So that's something that I'm doing all the time. Asking so what? So why are you doing this? Why are we doing this policy? And what's the goal? And why is it relevant? So that's a very important question to tell when you're doing monitoring and particularly evaluation. The second thing that I really like is that you have some kind of medium-term framework, and that you link your results of your M&E to a budgetary impact. So those are things that I recognize from the Netherlands, and that in our country works very effectively. So the linkage between policy making and the budget, so that is really strong in the Netherlands, and that really disciplines policy making. So those are the things I like. But I also have questions or some remarks, and I will stick to two or three. So you talked about big data, and so yesterday and also this morning people were talking about big data as the new thing. The way I see it is big data is just a buzzword for things that we've been doing for a very, very long time. That means we collect data and we analyze it. The only thing that's different nowadays is that we collect more data, and it's on a more granular basis, and it gives you more possibilities to analyze it. That's the only difference. If you're a bit cynical, so I'm a bit cynical person always, so we've been doing big data analysis at CPB since 1945, meaning that we collected data from the Dutch economy, we have a model, we analyzed it, and we interpreted its results. The only thing that's different nowadays is that we have more data, better data, more granular data. We even have microdata on, let's say, data on private persons. That's the only difference. So you can learn more from it. But the only thing I'm trying to say, the point to make is that collecting more data is not the thing to do. You should be aware of how you're going to analyze the data. More data is not going to help you. You have to think about how you're going to analyze it. So that will be my point. And the second thing that I wanted to mention is, so you talked about your M&E process. That means you have a policy, there's a certain goal, like a result that you want to achieve. You're going to monitor it and evaluate it. So what are you going to do, let's say, hypothetically, halfway, on, let's say, the logical path to the result, you're seeing that this is not going to work. So what are you going to do then? Because you said there is a linkage between the M&E and the budget. So I'm just curious, so what's going to happen then? So what are you going to do? And that also connects to another point I want to make. So you're the center of analysis for economic reforms and communication. Is that an independent organization in the country? Are you independent from the central government? And what kind of role can you play when, during, let's say, a policy trajectory, halfway, you see that, well, the results are not going to be achieved, and the budgetary impact is going to be larger, for example? So what are you going to do? So we're looking forward to the answers. Thanks.
Thank you very much for your questions, very interesting questions. As you mentioned, in my presentation I put so what question, but taking into account time exposure, I just provided my speech without any presentation. Of course, so what means that we have to compile algorithm, starting from input, then output, outcome, and impact. And of course, when we evaluate impact, it means that we try to answer so what question. And of course, it is very difficult. And as I mentioned, we first of all started from activity-based, which is very time-consuming monitoring and evaluation. Now switching towards logic model results chain and performance indicator framework, supporting by World Bank and UNDP experts. The second question about big data and how we use big data, how we analyze big data, and how we implement big data. Let me say that the brilliant example of big data analytics in Azerbaijan, stemming from monitoring and evaluation, is Azerbaijan's improvement in doing business report last year from 57th place to 25th place. And last year Azerbaijan was top reformer in the world according to doing business report delivered by World Bank. And this is a brilliant, I think, a reply for your question, how we use big data in our policy. A very important issue is functionality of linkage between midterm expenditure framework and monitoring and evaluation results in Azerbaijan. I know that your country, Netherlands, or New Zealand, or Australia, some UK, for example, they developed fiscal institutions and they ensured fiscal sustainability. For my country, Azerbaijan, and for developing countries like Azerbaijan, it's the first stage to find out interlink between midterm expenditure framework and monitoring and evaluation results. And that's why we use international development partners' experience, because it's a long-term perspective. And we started, by the way, from agriculture, education, and environmental policy as pilot project, because to start with everything and to interlink everything to your midterm expenditure framework is very difficult. As your question about our Center for Analysis of Economic Reforms and Communication, this center was created by Mr. President in 2016. It is independent center and directly report to Mr. President. And we have equidistance from all government agencies. It's our main advantage as institution who is in charge for running, monitoring, and evaluation. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.